I gotta respect a developer that doesn't just churn out sequels once they find something that works, one who's not afraid to mix things up, and that's exactly what Unknown Worlds Entertainment is doing. After the smash hit Subnautica and the ocean of money that came from that, they decided to go for the one audience big enough to top it: minifigure painting, the audience of which surely reaches at least the hundreds. Okay, I'm just kidding, I'm one of those hundreds. I've just recently gone into the hobby myself and I'm really enjoying it. So when the trailer for Moonbreaker was shown at Gamescom, I couldn't help but go, yes! I'm just surprised that that's where they went after the success of Subnautica. Not that it doesn't show. The game looks great, it plays great, and is beautifully animated. The animations are made to look like actual figurines being moved around on a board. It's meant to simulate tabletop games and not feel like actual people are moving around. The way the animations are done, flying around the screen and slamming down onto the board as if controlled by an invisible hand who just made the winning move, is great. The way the figures shatter into pieces when defeated is epic, and the way they move when attacking looks awesome. Treating the units like their figures gives them a unique look and feel, one that I really enjoyed. Not to mention the game's lore is being written by Brian Sanderson, author of Mistborn and Stormlight Chronicles, mirroring how George R.R. Martin wrote the world for Elden Ring, and I imagine this is where a not insignificant amount of that Subnautica money went. In early access, we didn't get to see much of Sanderson's writing. Most of it is relegated to short characters' bios for your figures/characters, and at the moment, one short audio drama. The characters do radiate charm and personality, partially from those elaborate animations I mentioned earlier, but also their detailed models and occasional quip bleed personality. I do hope they expand on those bios though, because most of them are only 1 or 2 sentences long. They're more character intros than bios. Most of the story is told through these 30-minute audio dramas. At the moment, there's only one, focusing on Extelia, one of the captains you can use. It is a little disappointing that the story isn't told in a more traditional way or through gameplay, like at all. It's very secondary, it's very easy to ignore. The icon for the audio dramas is just a little thing tucked away in the top right corner. It's very easy to miss. If I hadn't been following this game as closely as I have, I don't know if I would have ever seen it at all. But I do like that you can listen to them as you play the game or paint. As someone who likes to listen to Warhammer lore videos as I paint or play games, this feels exactly like how I and many others interact with the lore of Warhammer or other tabletop games anyways. As for the one audio drama available itself, I liked it. It does a good job of introducing us to Extelia and flesh him and the world out a bit. It tells us a bit about the universe, about Cinder, what it does, why it's important, and what makes this world tick, and the overall tone they're going for with this world, which seems like it's going to have a healthy dose of humor mixed in with its action. It basically follows this family as their town is being attacked by raiders, and Extelia are hunting them down. The voice acting is good, the jokes got a good chuckle out of me here and there. Overall, it served as a great introduction to the universe and characters. Moonbreakers plays very much like a tactics game. You and your opponent take turns positioning your team around the map, your units at different stats like health, damage, and movement, and through careful use of them, the terrain, and positioning you can get an upper hand and defeat your opponent. But there's also a lot of card game elements mixed in to spice things up. For example, you don't win by wiping your opponent's team out. Instead, each team has a captain who kind of acts like the king in chess if the king was cracked. If the captain dies, it's game over, even if you still have other units on the board. But each captain not only has a lot of health, but also powerful abilities that can turn the tide of a battle. Extelia, for example, has a passive ability where if an enemy unit is destroyed, he'll apply a buff to a random ally unit in range of him. He has a skill that can apply to allies in range that reduces damage taken by 1, and he has a spin attack that hits everyone around him for a guaranteed 3 damage, including his allies. You gotta be careful of that one. So even though losing your captain means defeat, you still want them on the front lines to make use of those powerful skills. Each unit has their own unique skills that fill a specific role. They're not all there to deal or soak damage. Some are more utility. One character's whole thing is they can throw enemies. It deals 1 point of damage, sure, but it's more for getting units away from you. Another unit is a turret that fires a powerful volley hitting everything in a cone, but it's a turret, so once you place it, it can't move, so you gotta be sure to place it in a good spot. It's almost more of a deterrent to keep enemies away from an area of the map. Another unit can stun everyone, including your own units in an area. Each unit is unique and has their own role to play, giving you tons to mix and match and make your own strategies. A unit that does nothing but pull enemies towards you sounds pointless, unless you have a melee focused team. Then having someone to pull those ranged enemies right up to your melee units so they can take them out is a godsend. You also get to pick 2 special abilities at the start of a round. They cost no cinder to use, but are on a cooldown. It's random what you get, but you get to pick from a set of 3. They're generally pretty powerful. They can be things like bombard an area for 3 damage to everything in it, or return a unit to your hand and heal it, or push everything away from this area. They're strong and can definitely turn the tide of a battle with careful use. Combine all that with the 50 units planned for launch, there's gonna be a ton of build diversity. I would like to see more different win conditions though. Right now the only way to win a game is to destroy your opponent's captain, but a lot of tabletop games have capturing points or something in order to win. I'd like to see more variety, which could also help keep the meta fresh. If we're only ever trying to take out our opponent's captain, that could get old fast and risk one meta team dominating everything. Another element of card games in Moonbreaker is Cinder. Cinder is currency you use to deploy units. Each unit costs Cinder to deploy, and you gradually get more Cinder each turn. So like a card game, you have to manage your Cinder carefully, deciding whether or not to save up for a stronger, more expensive unit, or plop down a bunch of weaker ones and hope to overwhelm your opponent early on. But certain abilities and some units also cost Cinder to attack. So for example, I had one unit that was basically an artillery unit. He could bombard things from halfway across the map for a guaranteed 3 damage, and it was a big AoE. But that's his only attack. It sounds overpowered, but each of his attacks costs 4 Cinder to use, and you can only hold 10 max, so you have to decide if the damage is worth more than deploying a whole nother unit, or using a support ability to heal, or maybe you just want to save some more Cinders for your next turn for a bigger move. This is a strategy game, and it's often having you make these difficult strategic decisions, requiring you to plan ahead and manage your team and economy. And when your plan comes together and you get that upper hand where things just accidentally fall into place like they often do for me, it feels so satisfying. There's currently 3 different modes in the game: a PvP mode, a mode where you fight against bots, and cargo run. I'm just going to focus on cargo run here because it's the most interesting one, and I just prefer single player stuff. And I think you can get an idea of the PvP from the previous section, and there's also plenty of crossover in terms of builds and what's good or not. So Cargo Run is a single player roguelike mode. It's 5 rounds against bots, and right now there are captains that are exclusive to Cargo Run and will probably never come into the hands of players. Probably because they'd be super overpowered if they did. Like one captain in Cargo Run can just brainwash any of your units so long as they have just a little bit of damage. And there seems to be no limit on it either. Pro tip, hit him with range and take him out fast. As you play Cargo Run, during each match boxes will drop on the field, and if you move a unit near one, it'll give you something. Sometimes it's an item that benefits the whole party, sometimes it increases one stat for the unit that gets the box, sometimes it gives you new units entirely, and sometimes it just gives you Cinder. And aside from Cinder, these will last until you either lose a match or finish all 5 matches. What boxes and when and where they spawn are completely random, but you do know what's in each of them, so it's up to you to decide if it's worth ignoring your enemy and grabbing one or not. It's another element to consider on top of all the other strategic elements, because those items and stat increases can be very powerful and are often what decides the final match. But units that are destroyed, they stay dead. If a unit is lost, it's gone forever, so you can't just bum rush the items without risk of losing powerful units. Health more or less carries over too between matches. Units get a small heal at the end of each match, but not much. If your captain took a beating, the next match is going to be rough. So I really like Cargo Run. It taps into what makes roguelikes so addicting, that feeling of cobbling together a build and seeing how overpowered you can get, and combine it with deck building elements since you also get new units, all while maintaining all the strategy of the other modes. And you get a fair amount of XP towards the battle pass and currency for doing it too. It's probably my favorite mode besides the painting, which I'll get to in a bit. But let's address something very quickly. Cargo Run is a very popular mode, but a controversial one. Not because it's bad or anything, because as of the writing of this, they limit the amount you can play it, requiring you to spend Cargo Run contracts. But also as of the writing of this, the devs have listened to player feedback, and will be removing the need for contracts and let us just play the mode as much as we want next week. I had a whole lengthy section ranting about Cargo Run contracts, but thankfully the devs are ahead of the curve and were able to respond to player feedback so swiftly. Take notes, Halo Infinite. Cargo Run could use some balancing though. That captain that can brainwash people is a pain to deal with. You can take control of any unit with even 1 point of damage on them, and there seems to be no cooldown or anything on it. You just have to use range on him and hope you can kill him before he gets too close. And if you got a melee build going, you're kinda just screwed. And due to the roguelike nature of the mode, you don't always have a choice. Alternatively, there was also a captain in Cargo Run that did nothing but plop down these weak little plants with only 3 health. He didn't really move, and I could just kill his plants in one shot, leaving me to roam around the map gathering up every box and buffing my captain and team. Throughout the match, I would just pepper him with this ship assist called Plink, which has unlimited range, does 1 damage to enemies, guaranteed, or heals 1 health to allies, and it has a 1 turn cooldown. So I was just whittling his health down the entire match. So I like the idea of Cargo Run, but it does need a little balancing, and maybe throw in some different win conditions in there too to keep it from feeling repetitive. Units can gain experience and level up as well, but it doesn't seem to mean much aside from bragging rights. But weirdly enough, you can only rank up units in the PvP mode or against bots, but not Cargo Run, which just seems like a strange omission. It doesn't really bother me much, it's just kind of odd. I think the point of leveling units is just to show off how good you are with them, which only really matters in the PvP side of things. Like, it's not that impressive if you just grounded out a bunch of bots. But again, that makes it all the weirder Cargo Run doesn't count, and a regular match with bots does. I know Cargo Run has some randomness to it, including what units you get, but I'm still using them. I still have to be good with them, so it's just a weird choice. At the very least, let your captain get XP, because you do get to choose your captain every run. But my favorite part of the game, hands down, is the figure painting. For all the money Games Workshop has and all the Warhammer video games that exist, we've never gotten anything that lets you just paint figures digitally. Moonbreaker is as close to perfect as you could realistically hope for. They've captured the feeling of painting while removing a lot of the more finicky parts of the hobby, but still maintaining what makes the hobby fun and relaxing. You have plenty of paints to choose from. You could even mix paints and save them for later use, which is surprising given that different colors are part of the battle pass. You have washes, you can dry brush, airbrush, decals, everything you would want is here without having to spend hundreds of dollars on paints and equipment. But they streamlined aspects of the hobby too. You can change the size and thickness of the paint, so your base coat is as simple as grabbing the largest brush and just one swipe over the model and you're done. Do you want to paint one specific part of the model a different color, but worry about getting paint on another part by accident? Well, all you gotta do is press shift, and you'll only paint that one specific part of the model. It kind of localizes it, so you don't have to worry about accidentally painting red on the model's face. Just go to town. There are some parts of the model that I wish were separated more, like facial hair for example is considered part of the head, which is true anatomically speaking, but I rarely want my character's beard to be skin colored. It'd be nice if they separated facial hair to make it a little easier to paint. But other than that, it's very good. It's so convenient just to hold shift on a part, max out the brush size, and just 1 or 2 swipes over it and it's done without collateral damage. It works with washes and dry brushing as well, and you have the whole palette to work with. This is so good for beginners because you can see exactly the difference dry brushing and washes make when painting, how they immediately add depth to the model, and thanks to the best feature, the undo button, you're free to experiment, try new colors, and just see what works. You can save multiple color schemes so you can try new patterns without having to buy an expensive new model or set of paints. Moonbreaker is the best entry point into the miniature painting hobby by a mile, and it's still only early access. It's far cheaper, it allows for experimentation, and the models are just awesome. They have so many little details and personality to them, which you get to add onto with your own paint schemes, and it doesn't feel tedious to paint them either, thanks to the quality of life stuff like the undo button or localizing parts. I spent hours just painting a single model as I listened to podcasts with the game's own audio dramas. It's just so relaxing and satisfying when your color scheme starts coming together. The only thing I would add to the painting mode is the ability to share people's creations. I love painting, but let's be real, I'm not good at it, and I know the community is going to create some awesome paint schemes that I would love to use myself. But my main issue with the game is that it's monetized through loot boxes. Yep. Look, I don't like loot boxes in the best of times, but especially not in a game asking $30 Canadian. I can kind of understand it in a free-to-play game, but even then there's more ethical ways to monetize your game. The thing is, I do think loot boxes could be a fun mechanic, you just can't deny the excitement of getting a legendary drop, but that's why they're so insidious. They're addictive in a way that tricks you into spending more money than you would want to. Moonbreaker's loot boxes are, to be fair, far from the worst. You can only get characters from them, so you don't have to worry about getting items you may not care about, like profile pics or something, and you get 3 units per box, and any duplicates give you a special currency called merits, which you can use to buy any unit you want, and once you open 20 boxes, you're guaranteed a legendary, and rarity seems to have no effect on a unit's stats, it just gives them flashier particle effects and a prettier glow. Moonbreaker is also pretty generous with its currencies. After only one cargo run and doing the challenges, I had enough blanks, which is their free currency, to buy 5 loot boxes, and after opening the 10 it gave me for free at the start, I did get a bunch of duplicates, but those duplicates gave me enough of the merits to buy 3 characters I wanted. And after only a few cargo runs, I had enough blanks to buy just under 20 boxes, which gave me basically every unit in the game currently, and more than enough merits to buy the rest. I think I only had to buy 6 units on their own with merits. Each unit cost 50 merits and I had 170 merits left, so I have enough left over for 3 more units. So it is, at the moment, very easy to get everything, and it only took me a few hours. It will take longer to get legendary versions of each unit though, but for one, you can use merits to upgrade the rarity. That is expensive though, costing nearly 2,000 merits, but that's just for a cosmetic change, which I honestly don't even notice. The game says that part is still in development, so maybe it'll be more pronounced later on, but right now I can't tell the difference between a legendary unit and a common one. Maybe it's just that the likes of EA have poisoned the well, but I just can't get over the fear that this system could be abused, even unintentionally. Let's assume for a second that the devs have the player's best interest in mind. They never abuse the loot boxes, it's genuinely easy to earn currency for free, and they stick to that. Well, they're also going to presumably be regularly adding in new units, so eventually the roster could get so big that no matter what, you feel pressured to buy if you want to collect everything. As they add more units to the game, it's going to take longer and longer to get the units you want from boxes because there'll be so much more stuff in there you could potentially get. It's going to be harder to get a specific one or build up that special currency through free-to-play means to buy them a la carte or all of them a la carte and collect them all, especially if you're a new player coming in later in the game's life or a lapsed player returning after a long break. And collecting a set is such a big part of the miniatures hobby. That's the thing with loot boxes, they're inherently manipulative. Even when the people implementing them have the best intentions, no one has figured out how to do loot boxes ethically yet. So long as you can buy them for real world money, which you can in Moonbreaker, they will inherently be manipulative. I'd like to think the devs have cracked the code and made a loot box system that is ethical because they have a good track record with their fans. They've been very open with them and they seem like good people, and as of right now it's easy to earn every unit as a free-to-play player, but history is not on their side here. Every time loot boxes have been in the game, they've made them worse. Just remember Battlefront 2? I understand they want this game to have a long tail, and I have no problems with them monetizing the game. They gotta pay their bills after all, but I would like them to explore other monetization options. It's just too slippery of a slope. If not, well, then they're gonna have a hell of an uphill battle to consistently prove to us that they can do loot boxes ethically. Moonbreaker is frankly awesome. The painting mode alone is enough to sell anyone interested in miniatures hobby. But you combine that with some solid strategy combat, and you have a very niche product, but a very good product. We have to keep an eye on the whole loot box scenario, but for now it seems quite generous with its currency and is very easy to collect everything. The devs also appear to be very responsive to the community, already applying fixes to Cargo Run and opening it up to let us play it as much as we want. And they haven't made a bad game yet. We just gotta keep an eye on the loot boxes. If they keep their promise and it continues to be generous with giving us units, this game will be amazing when it launches. And it'd be amazing if you could subscribe to my channel. If you made it to the end of this, thank you and have a good one.
You caused so much mayhem today.